part of life and is learning how to accept things. Self-accountability and the freedom begins with choice is our topic for today. Because a lot of times we perceive the world through the way that people are outside of ourselves. So self-accountability and that freedom allows us to feel comfortable in our own skin from within when we choose to be empowered through that. Self-accountability calls for us not to blame other people for where we feel less than ourselves, because we can't empower ourselves by giving other people the power to have us feel a certain way and to be a certain way. So as a coach, what I typically do is help people to feel comfortable in their own skin from within and accept themselves. We have this programming and we have learned behaviors, and a lot of us, these learned behaviors or survival skills no longer serve us anymore. So typically what I do is I break down these different types of survival skills that maybe we've never thought about. Like I say, I'm a coach. I'm not a psychotherapist and I'm not a psychiatrist. So what I do is I come from real experiences of overcoming things. And that's what a coach does, is they help people overcome and grow from strategizing and anticipating what's expected of them from the outside to being comfortable in their own skin, to navigating how they fit in, not how they're trying to fit in. Trying is a word that we often hear, when people are trying to feel comfortable in their own skin. It feels like, and that in itself says that we're in survival mode. Trying is in survival mode. And so when we can realize what is survival mode, because people hear the word survival mode, and that's why I get on here on a weekly basis and break these things down. So that's what we're going to do today. Self-accountability. Freedom begins with choice. So in our summary for the week, what's been going on this week is that we've been talking about self-accountability, but probably not the way that most people think about it. Self-accountability. A lot of people think self-accountability is blaming, shaming, even themselves, the shooting on ourselves. That's not self-accountability. So when many of us hear the word self-accountability, we immediately think about blame. We think about criticism. We think about admitting we were wrong, right? We think someone is going to point a finger at us. That's what we're afraid self-accountability may be. Good morning, Zasika. That's the first time I've seen that name before. Thank you for joining this morning. So if you're here and you want to tell me where you're from and everything, that would be amazing. What I love about this channel is being able to meet with so many people from all over the world. So thank you for being here. And I hope that you will decide to support this algorithm, because what we talk about is healing here, not about what's going on in the world and all the mayhem out there. Thank you very much, Ripley fan. Not all the mayhem out there, because really a lot of the times we're looking at the mayhem out there. We're avoiding the mayhem in here. You know what I mean? So it means a lot to me for you to be here and for you to stay and for you to take this journey and descubrieron. I am doing fine today. Thank you for asking. Ripley fan. I was born in North Korea and now live in South Korea. All right. Well, welcome. It's good to see you. What time is it in South Korea right now? I'm in Quintana Roo, Mexico. That's near Cancun. And right now it's currently 9:03 in the morning. Zasika, you're from India? Awesome. Well, thank you. It's awful late at night where you're from, right? And South Korea, where you're from too. So I want to thank you for being here. So talking about this self-accountability, I have my notes here because I get on a bunch of different platforms and I talk about different topics. So I want to thank you. Kmart, hello, welcome, 11 p.m. Well, thank y'all for sitting up with me this evening and talking about this self-accountability. And like I said, it's not to blame or criticize ourselves or anyone else. It's to have power within ourselves. And with power within ourselves comes freedom. John London, you made it. I'm so happy. I always love when you're in here. So thank you for being here. And I know that it's not too late today where you are. Lucky Street. All right. Well, good. It's always good to bring your nose with you. All right. So again, I want to thank you all for watching this because as I said, I know there's so much mayhem you could be watching. Thank you, John Lennon. There's so much mayhem you could be watching out there. Sometimes I watch the mayhem too, but it's always good to get your soul fed in the morning time, and so I hope that this is able to help you to navigate through the week because a lot of people are waking up on Monday and thinking, oh my God, another Monday. And some of this is programming, right? Sometimes we are just programmed. You can do what you set your mind to, Ripley fan. 3 p.m. All right. And you're staying in, right? Because is it a scorcher over there? It's not too bad here. Actually, this morning it was very nice here down in, near Cancun, Mexico. So yeah, we're talking about freedom. Self-accountability brings freedom. We don't have to blame, and it's not something to be down about. But a lot of people don't wake up and think, oh, I'm going to see what I can be self-accountable about. So when we get up on Monday, a lot of times we don't know what's ours to carry and what is somebody else. And so sometimes we feel the blame of another person, though they may have not even said it. It's been raining here the last 2 days. Well, I guess you're inside for sure with it raining, mid-temperatures. Yeah. All right, so I'm a Texican, Justin B. I'm a Texican right now. So I'm from Fort Worth, Texas, but I'm sitting down here, but actually Texas used to be a part of Mexico. So there we go. There we go. So we're going to be talking about self-accountability. I'll do a weekly summary because usually what I do, if you're new to this channel, is I pick a topic for the week that can help empower ourselves. It can give us something to think about as we carry on into the next week to break old cycles and interrupt some patterns that we may carry with us and not realize our why. So in looking at this, we talked about this week, is that when we hear that word, like I said, self-accountability, a lot of people think of blame, they think of criticism, but that's not what we're looking for. That's not what we're talking about today. Self-accountability isn't about blame, it's about freedom. Freedom. Because when I know what I'm responsible for, I'm free not to feel responsible for what you're responsible for. I'm not talking about politics on here. I am not Justin B. We don't talk about politics. We don't talk about religion because no one's opinions are all over the place. And that's again why I want to thank you all for sitting here with me this morning. I hope that you can catch a break from being bombarded with political opinions and all of these from all over the world. We don't talk about politics. We don't talk about religion, although we may acknowledge spirit. I want to respect all the faiths here. We don't get in faith debates here. We don't get any debates here. We don't talk about my age and we don't talk about my dating status. John London, sometimes we have to give ourselves choices consciously, freedom from the thoughts that can trap us. Absolutely. And that comes with us learning. We talked another week about having to, learning to set those boundaries with ourselves because we can fall into that trap like you're talking about. And so to keep from falling into that trap, when we catch ourselves stepping in it, we can be like, up, tippy toe, and then take that foot back out of that trap. How do I identify my own value? Well, that's what we're talking about. When we look at self-accountability, we realize that the values that we have, that it's not, outside of ourselves. The value that we have is inside of ourselves. But a lot of us don't know how to recognize that because when we're trying to measure up to other people, because maybe we were taught to compare, but a lot of us have learned to compare from somewhere. We may not even be able to track where. But it's good to learn to track where. Sometimes it might have been with siblings. Sometimes it might have been a parent pushing or a coach pushing or something, somebody pushing us to measure up. Sometimes people want us to measure up to bars they can't even reach themselves. Sometimes when I'm working with people and they're dissatisfied with the way somebody else is behaving, when I say, well, what would you rather see them do? What would y'all rather do? And they're like, I don't know. I don't think it's fair to ask somebody to be a certain way when you have no guideline. That tells us that you're never going to be satisfied with how yourself or somebody else. Because if you're looking for somebody else to satisfy yourself, well, that's a problem. That's a problem. And that's why I think we have a lot of problems in relationships, is that we haven't learned to communicate with ourselves on self-accountability, is communicating with myself, not blaming myself for the way somebody else is behaving, really being able to take a look at it and being accountable if I did do something wrong. But we need to be able to ask if I did something wrong. This is why so many people are overperforming and overthinking and over, because they're trying to anticipate, and comes from our survival skills, trying to anticipate what's next, because we all live in uncertainty. And people want certainty. Justin B, I see you feel, is that supposed to say sad? So anyway, on Monday, we talked about the truth beneath the excuse and self-accountability. And that excuse comes from rationalization and justification. Sometimes we don't own our own behavior because we've rationalized and justified it and made an excuse for our behavior. So that's all that it is. And maybe we just don't know how to own our own behavior. I know I had to learn how to own my own behavior because my central nervous system ran on what I was seeing outside of myself and how I needed to strategize or anticipate what to do next. So I wasn't really living in the present. So that's the thing, is a lot of people are doing this and they don't know. And so they're distracting themselves with other things here on YouTube, which is cool too, because sometimes I have to distract myself, But also it's important to know myself, to know if somebody asks me if I want to do something, to be like, yes or no, coming from myself, not what I think they want me to answer, right? That's part of self-accountability too. So learning what I want to do, who I am. When I ask somebody as a coach, when they're telling me they're dissatisfied with somebody, is it when I say, well, what would you prefer them to do? What do you want them to do? When they're like, I don't know. Well, isn't it not fair to ask somebody to do something? But they're not thinking, right? We don't think. It's not fair for us to ask somebody to do something else when we don't know what we want or, what. So we're trying to get somebody else to entertain us, and we're not even thinking about that. And I know that sounds harsh, but I know I did that too. I'm not trying to be harsh when I tell people this. There's so many people are looking for someone else, something else to entertain them, to distract themselves, to take their minds off their problems, to take their minds off of what they're trying to anticipate and strategize, those survival skills. But nothing changes if nothing changes. So that's why I get on here. I set my intention in the morning to get on here to help people think a different way, to be more empowered in themselves, so that when they meet somebody, they're not saying, I wonder if they like me, and obsessing on trying to measure up, but being like, yeah, I like them. I meet people I'll meet people and I'm like, this person's going to be my friend, because we all carry an energy in us, and sometimes I just will be around somebody and I'm like, you know what? They're going to be my friend. And I decide they're going to be my friend. It's not that I'm trying to save them. It's not anything else. It's just that I feel this energy that is, the same as a Sika. I'm working for my career, but I'm very much involved in thinking of my relationship failure. I understand what I need to do, and I still waste my time, or maybe I can't control my thoughts. Thank you for sharing that. I think that that's a pretty common problem. I couldn't control my thoughts at one time too, that obsession, and about trying to strategize about, okay, what do I want? But we don't have guidance sometimes. Hello, Mike Piccolo. And so sometimes we don't have another thought. So that's why we obsess and ruminate over the same thing and everything stays the same. So it's, being able to feel comfortable to talk about our thoughts, but sometimes we don't know how to express them, honestly. Sometimes we don't know how to express them. This is why I always talk about, getting to know our words, getting a relationship, even with our words, because a lot of us are looking for the relationships out. Viola, it's good to see you, darling. Yay. Yeah, I think it's yeah. It's good to see you. I'm fine. Thank you. And, well, so, being able to be in charge of making sure I'm compatible with myself. Thank you, Vegan Christianity. I appreciate that. Because that relationship that we have with ourselves is an extension of our relationships with everyone else, and that certainty can only be found within. We can't find certainty through trying to anticipate and strategize those relationships outside of ourselves. So thank you for being here this morning and being interested. And thank you for liking and subscribing. Y'all hit that like button if this is resonating with you, because I think many people feel like, Zasika is that where we just don't know, and we do waste our time with some of these thoughts, but if we knew better, we would do better. We would think better. But sometimes that's why I like to get on here, is just to give us something to think about, not think about in a bad way, but to empower ourselves to start the week off. And sometimes we relate more with these stories. So I'll get to the story here in just a few, because sometimes we can relate more with the story than we can to what I say, because the ego sometimes will be like, no, 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 no. No, that's not me. I did that the first time I looked at the book Codependent No More. I was like, oh no, that's not me. Because I didn't want it to be me at first, right? Is I didn't want to have self-accountability. I did not want to own that stuff and codependency, because even just hearing the word, I didn't even know what it meant. But even just hearing the word, I'm like, oh no, 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 no. And that's my ego. That's that fear. The ego protects us with our fears, but sometimes our egos are in overdrive, thinking that we have to have everything figured out in this world of uncertainty. And the reality is that the older that we get, the realize the less we know. And it's okay to be, just so that we can be aligned with our soul, rather than trying to fit in other places, trying to fit into somebody else's bar. And guess what? They may not even know either, just like the person that I sit with, and they're telling me how unhappy they're with somebody's behavior. And I say, well, what do you want them to do? And they're like, I don't know. There's another person sitting here that's unhappy with maybe our behavior, and and do they know what they want us to do? No. So that's why we feel like I can never please this person. Nothing I do is going to be good enough for this person. That's why you have to have that self-accountability and look at yourself and know that, have I done everything that I could do? Do I know myself? Am I true to myself? Because if you're true to yourself, you won't wonder if they're being true to you, right? So let's get beneath this, the truth beneath the excuse. So we explored rationalizations, justifications, and excuses that all of us use from time to time. Some of us learned how to rationalize and justify because as children, we have this imagination. And when we don't understand things, we try to make it make sense. So we start making up these stories. That's what happens, is we start making up these stories. Thank you for the hearts. And when we start making up these stories, we carry these stories into our belief systems into adulthood. That's what happens. So this becomes a part of your imprint, you're ingrained, and you're embedded. Like when you have a pet, your pet learns its role in the family. And I hate to compare us to pets, but we're all mammals, right? So the excuse often protects us from our discomfort. So it's things that we didn't feel comfortable with as a child that we didn't have the words to express. And it's been proven, if you read the book, The Body Keeps the Score, and other things, is that it's been proven that when children experience any kind of trauma or they experience these things, and I'm not trying to tell people what their trauma is, because some people, there's different traumas, and what some people may, when they're comparing their traumas to somebody else, may not feel their trauma is as bad, because sometimes that's how we learn to esteem ourselves, right? Is that, well, at least I'm not like that. At least that's what, I heard in the families growing up in the South, is at least I'm not like that. You just try to be better than your cousin. You just try to be better than this person. But that's not self-empowerment either. That's not self-accountability either, because you're still comparing, and comparison has to go with self-accountability. And when we quit comparing, that's freedom in itself, right? So we explored the rationalizations, justifications, and excuses that all of us use from time to time, not because we're bad people. We want to label things. We go from one extreme to the other. It's good or it's bad. But in between, there's harmony, because all of us are human beings, and we're going to make mistakes. That's the truth. Sometimes, so we decide to label ourselves or someone else, and when the mistakes are made over and over, and that just means that we're, like John London was saying earlier, in a trap. And so we can get ourselves out of the trap by going within, understanding ourselves, getting compatible with ourselves, and not running away from ourselves. And sometimes when we were children, and we were trying to make it make sense, When we were trying to say what we wanted to say, to ask those questions, we got shut down. So that was dismissal of our thoughts. When we were feeling things like crying, we talk about that a lot on here. When you're crying or you're upset, you get angry as a child, we get shut down. That's discarding our feelings. Our feelings were discarded. Well, we don't automatically. Sometimes we get to be adults, then we start expressing our words that we learned back then and our feelings, and they come out as temper tantrums in adults. And that's because we just didn't learn how to express them. We didn't learn how to regulate because this scared us. Some of us actually had real fear growing up. There was some real fears. And so when we got scared, being able to speak our words, the cognitive part of our brain shuts down because it doesn't make sense when we get trauma, when we feel trauma. So an excuse often protects us from discomfort. A justification protects our image. So the rationalization helps us make sense of something that doesn't feel good, right? So we start rationalizing these things. Sometimes we talked about some things that ideals people come up with come from fairy tales, country songs, and things like this. So we accept behavior that maybe doesn't feel comfortable, that maybe doesn't make us feel happy. So the question wasn't why are you making excuses? The question is what am I defending? Because a lot of us in our anticipating and strategizing, we are actually waking up on Monday morning. We may be waking up and trying to figure out, sorry, I didn't see the comments, it didn't move up on its own. We may be waking up trying to figure out, what does the boss expect of me today? What does this person expect of me today? So we're already waking up overwhelmed because we're thinking of what we're going to have to defend. Let me catch up with the comments. This is why I have notes, is so I can see your comments. Friends I have seen in 50 years pop into my head. The brain isn't amazing. It is amazing. See, we have data in our brain. And a lot of the things we saw from childhood have given us our belief system. John London, it's the most important relationship to love yourself and act on and out of that. Absolutely, John London. I agree 100%. We will pin that one. Okay. Zasika, I believe in self-love, but I fear to survive alone. Why do you fear to survive alone? See, that's an important question to ask yourself. Why do you fear to survive alone? And I get it, because when I was in therapy and then coaching, she said, the question she asked me over and over, repetitive, redundant, is what are you afraid of? When I was in a relationship that wasn't, compatible, right? It just wasn't compatible. And we want to say they hurt me, and we want to say this, and they did. They were a catalyst for my growth. But also, I played a part, and it's not to say it's my fault that they hurt me. That's not what we're saying. We're saying, what in me wanted to be in a relationship with a person who hurt me like that? That's self-accountability. And it's not to beat myself up, it's to learn from myself. What did I see in the past that thought that this was okay? I believe in loving others first. I'm not selfish and self-centered. Well, that's good, Mike Piccolo. I got called selfish and self-centered when I was a 14-year-old, and this is what happened. Is some of y'all have heard this before. Good morning, beautiful mama. Is that when I got called selfish and self-centered, I tried to prove I wasn't selfish and self-centered. So I didn't heal the part of me that felt the pain for being called selfish and self-centered. What I did was I started giving things away to prove that I wasn't selfish and self-centered. And that's different than healing, because I didn't have the right intention and motivation. The intention was to prove somebody else wrong. And anytime we do something out of spite and we're not thinking about that, because a lot of people don't do the deep digging. We try to look all flowery and beautiful on the outside, but we can't heal if we're just trying to represent this flowery and beautiful self, because all of us have a side of us that can wallow in self-pity. And I know that we can go to, other things, religion and these things like that, and it's going to be a temporary fix, but then we're going to find we're back at the same thing. But if we want to keep growing, then it's about feeling the feelings, not filling them with, some of the things outside of ourselves, but feeling them inside myself. So then we'll know, what am I defending? Because all of us have had pain in our lives, and a lot of us we do what we do because of that pain that's been in our life. So thank you. That's an interesting point. Aaron, good morning. Good morning, Aaron Sandoval. Thank you, Mike Piccolo. Good morning, Jim C. or Jim Deep. What's up? What's up, Deep? Yeah. Zasika. Thank you very much. Thank you. I hope that this is helpful. Good morning, beautiful goddess Susan Neal. It's good to see you this morning. I appreciate you being here. So we asked, what am I defending? So then on Wednesday, we went deeper and we looked at the why beneath the why is what it says, but it's the lie beneath the why. Because a lot of us just settled because there was a lie underneath. So we may have settled with our relationships, with our friendships. We may just feel like we were being drug along. Somebody the other day in one of the programs I was doing felt like they weren't really a part of things. You know, they felt like they were just like being drug along or what have you, that they weren't really living their life. So when we look at the lie beneath the why and understand our magnificence, because most of us are looking for the fault in ourselves, looking for the blame within ourselves, or looking for the blame in someone else. But when we look at the lie beneath the why we did what we did, a lot of people will say, you know, and what we talked about, I think Monday, was about how we say, well, they made me do it, or I did this because of this, they did this. And so when we look at the lie beneath the why and become more empowered about, well, this is what I was feeling. This is when I felt this before, and it hurt me then. And so I learned to defend myself with this. So then we can look at why we're defending ourselves, and if it's still, if it's still relative today. So the first answer, is really the deepest answer. Why do I get defensive when we start digging beneath these whys? Why do I get defensive? Why do I shut down? Why do I overreact? Why do I need approval? And why do I avoid conflict? I know I have avoided conflict and confrontation. And when we grew up and we didn't see a healthy representation of what conflict and confrontation looks like, sometimes we don't stand up for ourselves. And when we do, we think, I've had it up to here, and then we explode, then no one takes us serious. So it's learning to have those boundaries with ourselves and boundaries with others in the beginning, but we didn't just learn, a lot of us didn't learn that growing up. So when we continue asking why, we eventually arrive at something more honest, not another excuse, but the wound. When I did this why exercise, and it was because somebody didn't include me in something, and then they went and they had fun, and they called me and told me they were having fun, then I was mad. I don't think that they did it to be mean to me. They just did it because that's what they do. But I was mad, and I had to take that why exercise beneath the lie, because at the bottom of it, what I came down to is I can't remember, of course I asked, why am I mad because they're having fun without me, is where it started. But then as it went down, what I got down to was that inner child wound. And that inner child wound was if I don't feel important enough, is what that trigger is. That's what the trigger is, because it's not just important enough in the romantic relationship. If I didn't feel important enough at work, it's because I learned that I had these shortcomings, the way that I would act out when I got in fear that I wasn't important enough. The way that I would act out was my shortcoming. So at work, I might have told on somebody for doing something at work. Then I felt guilty for that, because I do have a conscience, So I felt guilty for telling on somebody at work. And when I did my self-inventory, when I did my self-accountability, it's like, oh, Stacy, you got jealous because they can go out drinking and you can't go out drinking. And so you decided to tell on them. That's what I did. And I'm not proud of it. And that's what I'm saying. When we look at this self-accountability, it's not all flowery and pretty. It's not all rationalizing that, oh, I'm just a good person, because I wanted to think I'm just a good person. But when we just think we're a good person all the time, we sometimes will feel victimized. And being victimized isn't empowering either. We might have been victimized at some time in our life, and we might still continue to be victimized, but only if we let it. And sometimes we just don't know how not to let it. So it's about understanding that and getting an understanding that's deeper within ourselves underneath these whys. Because the first time we say, why did I do that? What do most of us say? I'm stupid. I'm lazy. We usually say something pretty negative, right? And then we don't like the way that feels. So then we self-sabotage usually, because it's like, I want to escape from these feelings. The only way through it, you just have to go through it, grow through it. You know, there's no way, because usually after we self-sabotage, reach for something outside of ourselves, whether it's a food that's not good for us, whether it's some people it's a cigarette, sometimes it's alcohol. And then we're disgusted with ourselves and we're like, I just got to feel better, or we go to bed, but we still don't solve the problem, right? So it's about discovering what is the problem, what is that inner child wound. Hello, emo. So when we continue asking why, we arrive at something. We arrive at the underlying cause when we say, why did this upset me? And then we go, well, say, I don't remember verbatim what it was. Why did it upset me that they had fun without me when I look back at who I was 20 years ago? So why did I get upset when they had fun without me? Well, because they didn't invite me. Well, why didn't they invite you? Well, because of this. Well, why did they not invite you? Because of that. You know, I actually had 2 kids and I didn't have the money to do it and all of this. So it's like, well, because of this. And then it's like, and then I feel left out. And then, well, what else? Why do you feel left out? Because I can't do this. And then it's like, well, why can't you do this? You know, and so then it's just getting down to, I don't feel important enough. I don't feel important enough. So not another excuse, but a wound. Not another defense, but discovering what is the fear? What is the fear? That's the fear, is that I'm not important enough. But how do I act out? In a relationship, I might act out, you know, when I hear they're having fun, throw in my phone at first. Like, really? But anyway, that's where I was 20 years ago, because I'm a human being and you are too. And I don't get on here to tell you how you're supposed to be, how you should be. I just try to offer some different thoughts and perspectives to help us to return to who we are, not to be somebody else, because a lot of us have tried to be somebody else to fit in to some other person's agenda, but not realized our own. So we have to uncover those lies to be able to realize, what is my agenda? What's my agenda? What is compatible with me? Rather than us trying to find out if I'm compatible with them. So that's where compassion begins. Not compassion that removes responsibility. We're not going to be like co-signing our stuff or co-signing anyone else's stuff anymore, because chances are you've given other people more chances than you've given yourself, more forgiveness than you've given yourself, more credit than you've given yourself. So we arrived on was it Friday, we arrived at what's mine to own. Because if I carry what belongs to everyone else, they acted like that because of me. That's really what I had to learn in codependency. That was being all about me, thinking that people behave the way they behave because it's all about me. I had to learn it's not all about me. People behave the way they behave because that's the way they behave. Self-accountability, I'm able to ask, did I do something wrong? A lot of people would think they did something wrong. They have unearned guilt and they didn't do anything wrong. So this is why self-accountability is so important. So you're not blaming yourself for things you didn't do. Hello, Diddy. So, if we carry what belongs to everyone else, we eventually become resentful. We expect someone else to carry what belongs to me. We want that exchange. They would need to carry what belongs to me. It eventually becomes powerless. Freedom begins when I can tell the difference. When I know the difference, Zasika. What if people are rude to me? Then what should I do? What I do when people are rude to me, Zasika, is I'll say, why did you say it like that? Why did you do that? That's not very nice. But in humanness, most of us want to come back with, no, stab at them, back again, because when they stab us, we want to cut them back. But most of the time, for me, when I had to learn to interrupt them, because they expect, some people are rude to you because some people are rude or mean because they have an expectation that people don't like them. So when they have an expectation people don't like them, they're going to prove it, just like I was trying to prove when I was younger that I wasn't selfish and self-centered. So sometimes people are trying to get you to have that fight so it can reinforce their belief of their lies, right? And so we don't have to play into that. I don't play into that. I've had people being rude to me in the airport, and she told me something in the airport. I was asking her a question. Somebody who worked in the airport. It wasn't like it was another passenger. I was asking somebody who worked in the airport a question about the airport, and she was like, American Airlines ain't the only airlines comes out of here, because I was trying to find the right terminal in a different airport. And I'm like, why did you say that like that? And she's like, and people don't know what to say because they're expecting you to come back in an argument. They expecting to fight, right? But when you come back and you're not fighting and you say, why did you say that like that? That of course that they have to be accountable for why did they say that like that. They don't have to be accountable if you pop off back at them. But if you ask them, why did you say that like that? Or you state, well, that wasn't very nice, and don't get in a fight with them, then they don't know what to do. Because in reality, most people do fight back. They'll twist off and assassinate their character or something else. But we don't have to do that. We can just call people on it. If someone's rude to you, then don't let it make you rude. Absolutely, wave 299. We don't have to be rude because we don't want to become something that we don't like. And if we don't like somebody being rude to us, we don't need to be rude. This is what, a lot of people think that it's that they'll rationalize and justify. I know, right, Zasika? They'll rationalize and justify why it's okay to, transfer their anger. But usually it's a transference of anger when somebody's rude. And when we understand transference of anger, we know that they're just trying to transfer their anger on me because they're angry half the time when they're being rude. They're unhappy. So they're trying to transfer their unhappiness. Are you going to let them transfer their unhappiness? So we'll become resentful. If I expect someone else to carry what belongs to me, I'll eventually become powerless. So freedom begins when we can tell the difference. What is mine to own? What is mine to heal? What is mine to communicate? Grinch is communicating. That's my bird, y'all, making all that noise, Grinchy. What is mine to heal? What is mine to apologize for? Sometimes people are saying, a lot of people I've worked with, they apologize all the time. They just are like, I apologize. I'm sorry. And they don't know if they did anything wrong. They'll tell me, I don't know. Grinch, my goodness, you're getting excited, huh? What is mine to change? We can't change other people. We can change, and I appreciate you asking that, Zasika, because we can change how we respond. We don't have to react, because if I come back at somebody being rudely, then I'm reacting to their rudeness. But if I respond, I ask them, why did you say that like that? That's a response. Hello, Adib. So what isn't? I'm not responsible for another person's choices. I'm not responsible for another person's emotions. I'm not responsible for making everyone comfortable. But I am responsible for my honesty, because a lot of times when we don't take responsibility for our honesty, we won't believe when other people are trying to compliment us. We won't believe when other people are trying to help us. We'll think they're just doing that because we feel obligated to help people. So it's about changing that pattern of feeling obligated. It could have been a learned behavior. Like I said, people aren't bad. It could have been a learned behavior, that feeling of obligation. We don't have to feel obligated. So I'm responsible for my healing, my reactions, responses, my choices, communication, my willingness to grow. And that's what this week has been about here. So not becoming harder on ourselves, not becoming better than someone else, not finding someone to blame, but remembering that every time we become aware, we're being given something incredibly valuable. When we are aware, that's a value. That's recognizing our own value when we get to learn who we are. When we have to see ourselves to be seen. We have to be able to do that, to know. Because sometimes people's reflection or projection of you is not accurate. Just like your reflection or projection of them might not be accurate. So if we get that compatibility within ourselves, our relationship, I think that's what next week's topic is going to be about, is compatibility with ourselves and others. Because a lot of times we're trying to fit into others' compatibility thing and not recognizing our own. So y'all ready for story time? Y'all ready for this? Finally, at last, y'all ready? Because what I like about story, when we get down to the story, is trying to join us. Yeah, I know. My little bird sometimes pops in here, Zasika. Maybe you'll get to see him. So I do the story because sometimes, these things, like I said, the ego will, at first be like, no. And already we can tell there's, a lot of people aren't interested in this kind of topic, the self-accountability. but it's important. It doesn't mean that it's not important. In fact, it's very important because a lot of people are watching everything but self-accountability. They're watching people blame other people and all this mayhem. So again, I want to give my sincere thanks for you choosing to be here today instead of caught up in the mayhem. Thank you, Shalajaran. I'm glad you're here, Shalarajan. I said it backwards, sorry. Apologies. All right, here we go. So sometimes we can relate more with a story. You know, like when we watch a movie on TV, we can relate more with the movie and then we feel ourselves. So here's our story today. Let me know if anyone relates to this, okay? All right. So I'd like to share this story because I think many of us will recognize pieces of ourselves in it, okay? So just kind of take a deep breath in. I'm going to take a deep breath too because I've been so excited sitting here talking to you this morning. We're going to slow it down a little bit, okay? So take a deep breath in. And release. For story time. We're going to relax. So just picture this story. Imagine someone growing up in a home where secrets were simply part of everyday life. No one ever sat down and said, "This is how we live." All right, you're welcome to be here, ND8 Templeless, but that's not on our topic today, and I'm telling this story. I hope you'll sit and listen to the story, but if you keep putting this up here, I'm going to have to put you out, okay? Thank you, darling. So, imagine someone growing up in a home where secrets were simply a part of life. My goth phase. I think I went past the goth phase. My son was in a goth phase. So no one ever sat them down and said, "This is how we live." It was simply atmosphere of the home. One parent drank heavily. Sometimes they were playful, affectionate, and engaged, and other times they were asleep, emotionally unavailable, or unpredictable. The children learned very early on not to wake them. Y'all ever had those parents, you don't wake the bear? Not to upset them, not to make things worse. If bottles needed to be hidden, bottles or cans needed to be hidden, they helped hide them after, Dad passed out. If questions were asked, they knew what not to say. Don't say this. They were told, they got given the script, don't say this. There were family secrets. There were things that we protected, things that we never talked about. And without realizing it, the children learned that love and secrecy could exist together. They also learned something else, that the truth wasn't always safe. Truth wasn't, so half-truths became normal. Half-truths became normal. Trying to stay out of trouble became normal. They became very good at reading people. They could tell by someone's face, the tone of their voice, or the footsteps if something was wrong. And those weren't flaws, those were survival skills. Years later, this person met someone they deeply loved, and their partner was honest and dependable and emotionally stable. But old programming never simply disappears. It doesn't. Inside, they still expected disappointment, just like when they were a child. They still expected to get in trouble. And they still believed that if they made a mistake, love might disappear. So, all right. Sorry about that. So, shopping slowly became one. Are y'all with me? Shopping slowly became one of the places those old beliefs showed up. Growing up, they had very little. They often compared themselves to friends who seemed to have nicer things. Somewhere inside, bearing things became connected to feeling like enough. And without realizing it, shopping became a way to soothe the shame. And as the spending increased, the credit card bills were hidden. Not because they wanted to deceive the person they loved, but because somewhere inside was still that child thinking, if they find out, I'll be in trouble. So eventually the truth came out. They found the credit card bills that were hidden, and the partner was devastated. Not because the money alone, not because of the money alone that was on the credit cards. That wasn't pleasing, but it wasn't the money alone. It was because trust had been broken. And feeling deeply hurt and confused, the partners stepped away for a few days. They were like, I don't even know what to do with this. They called Miss Stacy. They said, Stacy, what do I do with this? They didn't want to punish the person. They didn't want to abandon the person, but because they needed time to process what happened, because they didn't know this was happening. You know, they lived with this person and they didn't know. So the partner kept asking, why would someone lie to someone that they love? And the other person kept asking, why was I so afraid to tell the truth? And neither question could be answered through blame, but both required understanding. John London, this really speaks to me. The relationships between love and trust is a strong one. It sure is. Thank you for sharing that, John London. I appreciate that. Yeah, because I totally got it too. Yeah. So the partner eventually worked with a therapist, though, and the other person entered counseling to understand something much older than the credit card bills. At first, they blamed the shopping on the partner and just trying to be seen by the partner and look good to family and friends, making sure he was impressed. They wanted to, the partner wanted to look like they had it all together, so they didn't tell about the credit cards and shopping. So they discovered that shopping had never really been about the shopping. It was about shame. It was about trying to feel enough, trying to look like enough, and trying to create on the outside what had never settled on the inside. They realized they had unknowingly placed the responsibility of their self-worth onto their partner. They also learned about triggers and the fact that their dad was sleeping and the attention they wanted and longed for was kind of like the partner who didn't see them. And so the acceptance was tied to looking like everything was fine for approval. So they hoped approval from someone would finally good. But no one else could do that work for them. No one outside of themselves, not their partner. So that responsibility belonged to them. The partner also learned something very important. Because the person they loved had become so skilled at making everything look okay, they had assumed reassurance wasn't needed. They didn't realize the long periods of emotional distance, even because of work, could awaken old fears of abandonment and not being enough. Neither person was wrong. Neither person was the enemy. Hold on. I just lost internet. They were carrying different stories. Over time, they learned to communicate instead of assume, to ask instead of accuse, to listen instead of defend. The person who had hidden behind half-truths, I want to say that. The person who had hidden behind half-truths learned to pause when old fears were triggered instead of acting on them. The partner learned that encouragement wasn't rescuing. Sometimes it was simply helping the person they loved remember what was already true about themselves. They learned to be mutual, not one person doing one role, one person doing the other role, but connecting with each other. Sometimes it was simply helping the person they loved remember what was already true about themselves. Neither could heal the other's childhood. Neither could heal or erase the past. But each became responsible for how they showed up in the present. Not through blame, not through perfection, and but through choice instead. One honest conversation, one courageous decision, and one day at a time. So, as closing, we do the breathing at closing just so we can regulate. Because a lot of times if people would regulate, they might leave that shopping cart alone, right? Sometimes we do want to escape. When I was talking about filling it up earlier, sometimes it's filling up that shopping cart instead of realizing, what am I trying to prove? What am I trying to defend? what is wrong with me, what happened to me, rather than trying to figure out everybody else. I work with people and getting them to recognize who they are, because sometimes they have families and they lose themselves. So sometimes we got to remember who we are. It helps to have a partner that can also remember that we're not enemies, because a lot of times I see that in partnerships. John London, recently my cousin kept his graduation a secret. Oh my goodness, so did his mom and dad, yet they invited the rest of the family, even though we see each other every day. That's just weird, isn't it, John London? I wonder why they did that. That is just weird. Now, this one was the one I was trying to avoid. I'm sorry, John London. That is hurtful, isn't it? Because it's like, why did you do that? Maybe someday that line of communication, since y'all do see each other every day, maybe the line of communication will be open. Why did you do that? Some people do grow up in this secrecy, and so it becomes a game. And they don't realize they're even playing the game. I see it all the time. A lot of people, they don't realize that they're playing a game. They think that, it's their central nervous system a lot of times, their reactions to things rather than being inside themselves. And those reactions are through the anticipations and the strategizing. And when we wear ourselves out, when we notice, this is why we're doing the breathing eventually. I've got a closing statement before we do the breathing. Is a lot of times when we're not breathing and we're ruminating and we're obsessing, we're not breathing, and our mind's not getting the right amount of oxygen, and our mind loves oxygen. That's why we do the breathing, because we get in the present moment. We're not being triggered by the past. We're not escaping through filling it up instead of feeling it. So just kind of, giving that some thought. I don't know what MP is talking about. Viola says, yay, Grinch. Everybody's happy to see you, little bird. Okay. Seems like, all right, I don't know what that means. All right, so none of that's relevant to the topic today. I want to thank you all for being here, and for those of you who have shared on topic and that I hoped you escaped through buying things, Terry, thank you. Because I don't like looking at the comments, and I'm not going to answer the comments that aren't on topic, because people watch the replay here, and I'm not getting into that. So, yeah, I escaped through buying things too there for a while. It's like the layers. John London, it makes more sense when their mom is a narcissist, and so she controls them and manipulates. But yeah, just plain weird of him, 21 years old. I know, right? But yeah, when you said that mom's a narcissist, they're all concerned about the way that things look outside, right? Is that things are falling apart inside while they're trying to manage how things look on the outside. I tell people, because I'm the type of friend, you can come see me, people call. I know that when my friends come see me, I don't need to clean my windows for them to come visit me, because they're coming to see me. They're not coming to peek in my windows and find my secrets and things like this, because I'm pretty transparent, but a lot of narcissists, that's their fear, right? Is that, yeah, they don't want you to see things for as they really are. So that's very interesting. And I bet more will be revealed about that, Zasika wants to know where you're from, John London. We're about to get into the closing. So as we finish today, carrying this into the week, what is mine to own? Are you apologizing for things that aren't yours to apologize? And being able to catch yourself, from apologizing for something you didn't do. Sometimes that's linked to our being a doormat. I know for me that was when I was a doormat, I would apologize for everything, and I thought everything was my fault. And I had to learn that not everything is my fault. I can own what is mine. I do make mistakes. I'm a human being, and I don't have to defend or hide my mistakes, because I'm a grown woman. So I'm not afraid of getting in trouble with another adult, you know. So I don't have to have these secrets, but I did grow up in secrets. So I understand secrets too, but I understand how harmful secrets are, you know. So we can change who we are. We don't want to become like those things that we fear. So it's about being able to recognize it, not pointing the finger out there all the time, but being able to recognize, where did I feel this before, so that it doesn't have an impact on our lives. Because when we have resentments and refelt feelings, it releases toxins in your body from those hormones, those chemicals that are released from your brain that go down your ganglia chain, which is like your backbone, your spine, and everything. So you want to make sure that you're not holding up chemicals, either stopping the healthy chemical releases, and then we're going to feel like, when we learn to recognize the way that our body feels too, because your body is connected to your mind. And when you learn to recognize when you're releasing these toxins, which are going to be going down your throat also, you know, because your perceptions all are going to go down your throat. Everything that we feed ourselves, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, go down our throat. So it's important to be mindful of what we're putting into our mind. Okay, Sasika, I hope you subscribe to the channel, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. I'll be back on here yes, cortisol hormones, yes. I'll be back on here tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. I hope to see you there, Sasika. Yes, we release that dopamine, that cortisol, and that's sometimes how people stay in unhealthy relationships, that back and forth, is that they get addicted to the releases of those chemicals in their body, but it doesn't mean that it's healthy. And sometimes we get blocked up and locked up in these chemicals. Thank you so much for subscribing, Sasika. We're about to get into breathing, y'all. I want to thank you again for being here. And we're just going to get some closing thoughts and get into the breathing, because with the breathing, it can put you in the present moment to where you're calm. You're not releasing these harmful chemicals. And the breathing has been shown, if you listen to Dr. Joe Dispenza or other people, that you get to have the right, you know, your cerebral spinal fluid goes up and down your spine. If it's not going up and down your spine, you may feel stoved up. You may have aches. You may, you know, be feeling like your posture is not as good. If you're not getting enough breath, you'll notice when we breathe, your posture gets better because you breathe fully. So that's why breathing is so important, to be in the present moment, to be in your divine mind, because like was said earlier, your brain has so much data in it that there's a difference between the brain and the mind. There's a divine mind that connects you with your intuition. The brain helps you with your expectations and strategies and all of this. And so we need to calm that. There's a time to work with strategies and there's a time not to, but if your central nervous system is working on overdrive, then you're just simply running on strategies and anticipations of what's going to happen out there. Tomorrow's Monday. Don't wish your life away. You know, it's just Monday. Every day is going to come and every day is going to go, and we don't have to attach labels to them that's going to make us feel dread, to make us, you know, start off with these programs that are, you know, are in our head. It's just Monday tomorrow. Hello, Dr. Mark. How are you? The naughty lady of Shady Lane. Hey, Dr. Mark. Thank you. I'm glad that you're here. We're about to be breathing. I'm going to do the closing statement, then we get to breathe. It's good to see you, Dr. Mark. Hello. So, I hope that this week has shown, you know, you all what self-accountability isn't about carrying the weight of the world. You know, when we breathe, you know, breathe into your shoulder blades, breathe into your chest, breathe all the way down into your tummy. It's about learning what belongs to you. Sometimes we spend years carrying another person's choices, another person's emotions, another person's healing. And sometimes we just spend as much energy asking someone else to carry what belongs to us too. I do remember that song, and I'm going to have to play it again because I played it after you told me, Dr. Mark, but I'm going to have to play it again. Good morning, Pammy. You're almost getting to breathe with us this morning. How was your weekend off with the hubby's birthday? So sometimes we just, okay, so freedom, y'all, begins when we begin to gently tell the difference. We'll gently tell the difference. It's not like we're going to be blaming ourselves and persecuting ourselves. Good. I've enjoyed watching your videos. I've got more to watch, I think. But freedom begins when we can tell the difference, not with blame, not with shame, but with honesty. I've learned that honesty isn't always comfortable, but it's freeing is what it is. It's always freeing. So I can finally begin living at my honesty, not trying to be, take inventory of somebody else and make them be honest. My honesty. You're very welcome. So before we breathe, I'd like you to ask yourself one question. What am I carrying that's not mine? And then, what have I been asking someone else to carry that is mine? So, just notice it. Notice it without judgment, without fixing, just notice. As you breathe in, receive your truth. And as you breathe out, release blame. Receive responsibility. Oh, thank you, Dr. Mark. Northern Italy. Very cool. That is so beautiful. I hope you enjoyed your vacation. That is an amazing thing. I'm kind of jealous, but not jealous in a bad way. But yeah, that's amazing. So I hope that you enjoyed it. I someday hope to go there. I know, right? I know. That is amazing. I want to go to, we know I want to go to Italy. Lake Como, though. I've seen the pictures. I got to get there one of these days. It'll be breathtaking. I'll just be like stunned when I go, right? I know, Pam. We need to get ourselves over there. So release blame. As you breathe in, receive responsibility. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's not your parent pointing you in your face to be responsible. You actually do a lot of breathing exercises for stress relief. As you said, I've been doing this for years, but I also do breathing because I swim many laps in a row and I sing. Yes, the breath is so important for that. I learned, the first time when I became conscious of breathing was that it gives you stamina, right? That's what I tell people is it's regulation and regeneration, because when the first time I started learning to breathe was karate, martial arts. And I learned, that in sparring, you have to learn to breathe. You have to be in your right mind, because it's not about beating people up. It's about, watching what's going on. When I broke boards, I had to learn how to have a relationship with the board to know where to hit the board to break the board into. So breathing is part of our relationships, like with the board, whether it's a board. But then, I started learning breathing and, of course, the yoga, and I started learning breathing, in healing work. When I first went to therapy, she was like, breathe, because I would be catastrophizing, those what ifs that were catastrophizing. So yeah, those are good things. Did you get to swim while you were in Italy and singing? That's very cool. So we need to release the need to control what's never ours to control, and take another slow breath and remember that freedom doesn't come with having a perfect past. It comes from making an honest choice in the present. So when we're in our divine mind, our right mind, we're going to make better choices. I've told y'all, I may have a Texas hissy fit sometimes and have to hit the pillow, cry, and, it's not pretty. But when I calm down, I remember what's really happening, because I have to feel my feelings. We have to feel them to heal them. Feel them, F-E-E-L, to heal them. And then I get in my right mind. I do my breathing, and I'm like, oh, this was what this was about. Right, Dr. Mark, I'm still in Italy until the end of the month. Then I'm going to Yorkshire through. Oh, that sounds like a blast. Sounds like a blast. I wish I could see your pictures of all those amazing adventures, but I do see pictures of those on Facebook and things like this. They're on my list. So have enough fun for me. That sounds wonderful. So are y'all ready to breathe, darling? Benod, hello, darling. We're just about to breathe. So I want to leave you with this thought. Freedom isn't found in taking responsibility for everything. That's not where freedom is. Freedom is found in knowing what's yours and having the courage to let go of what isn't. That's not attached to your value. Taking on other people's responsibilities, taking on other people's, things is not it's not going to bring you your value. Your value is in you. So breathing in that value and releasing any fears and doubts. Also notice in your body, when you breathe in, you're going to notice your body's posture is different. And then just breathing into your tummy, holding it if you can for 4 counts, and then releasing gently and slowly. You get to swim every day while you're there at home? 83. Oh, wow. That's perfect, isn't it? Well, enjoy. I know that's beautiful. So amazing. I can't wait till I get to do stuff like that. That's very cool. Maybe in a year, year and a half. All right. Are y'all still here? Y'all ready to breathe, darlings? Grinch, you gonna breathe with us? Is that a no? It's a no. He's playing. Let me get these glasses off my head. All right. So let's just take a deep breath in, breathing in that freedom. Shoulders rise, your heart opens. Hold it. And release gently and slowly. Breathe. Hold it. Release. Breathe in. Hold it. And release. Just 2 more. Breathe in. Hold it. Release. Last one. Breathe in. Hold it. And release. Ah, epic. I wonder why you didn't get a notification. Oh, yeah. Will you watch the replay, Epic? Because I think you'll like it. I know John London enjoyed it, the story today. I hope you all will get to watch that replay. And I know that it may be long, just kind of look into it. And then some people may want to fast forward into it, if they don't want to hear the summary. But Epic, you probably would like the summary too. JR, how did I miss you? JR, welcome. I'm glad you're here. And I hope you all enjoyed that breathing. Good, John London. You're getting regenerated. You don't even have to go to sleep this time. What's it now? It's about 4:30 or 5, getting close to 5 o'clock. You are very welcome, Viola. I'm so glad you made it this morning. Epic. Yes. Thank you for watching those replays, Epic. I appreciate you. And Pam, I know you'll like the story too. Indy 8. Well, hope y'all can digest my finding as is fundamental to your cosmic origins. Well, thank you for sharing your cosmic origins with us. Thank you. So I appreciate y'all so much. Man, I hope you're going to have a wonderful week. I'll be back here tomorrow night, 4:08. Oh, so it's not close to 5 yet. Well, I hope you will be back here tomorrow night, John London. I appreciate you being here today. It's always a pleasure to get to see you. Thank you. You have a great day too. Enjoy. And Pammy, I'm glad you got to be here. And thank y'all for watching the replay. If you came in late, Epic and Viola, thank you for being here. You've been here the whole time, so I appreciate that. And Dr. Mark, I don't know if you're still here, but do you post pictures if you are still here on your YouTube? Pam has, if y'all want to follow Pam, she's over in, like California, and she shows some amazing beaches too. And, it's a lifestyle channel where she talks about, overcoming, weight, and also, good things that you can put in your body. Like I said, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. We're all talking about what good things we can put in our mind, body, and soul. So, yes, I know, right, Pam? So, yeah. Uh, Thank you so much, Epic. I appreciate that. Because, yes, when y'all have a choice to go somewhere else, to come here, that makes me so happy because there's so much mayhem going on in the world. And sometimes we're avoiding our own mayhem to see what else is going on. And I just appreciate you all being here. Thank you so much. You're on the keto diet. Do you follow Pam Epic? Because she talks about a lot of different diets and a lot of different things. I know I've got to watch that rattlesnake thing. I had a rattlesnake in Texas one time. We had this dog. I didn't know the dog was barking outside the house. And so I go out to see why the dog's barking. My ex-husband was on a trip. So I go and get this shotgun. So I'm out there trying to shoot a snake with a shotgun. And my mom comes out there and throws a rock at the snake. So I couldn't even shoot the snake. She messed it up. So it's like, okay, well, the snake left anyway, and no one was hurt, but that is scary. You lost 30 kilograms in 4, wow. Yeah. Well, I hope you'll stick with us and yeah, give Pam a watch too, because it's about supporting each other, because a lot of times we can lose it. Yeah. And then it's when we get out of the support helps to stay on the path, right, Pam? Yeah. So having somebody on the same, that's on this, doing the same things and trying to help, encourage us and help us along, because some people just don't get it, right? Dr. Mark, I will look for you tomorrow. There is a time difference between, I know, right? You are very welcome, darling Dr. Mark. I appreciate that. So thank you for being here today, and enjoy, have enough fun for me and Pam over there in Italy. Thank you so much. All right. Thank y'all so much. I once again appreciate you for spending your Sunday morning with me. It makes my heart happy. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. And I think we're going to talk about compatibility with ourselves and others. What do y'all think about that? I know, right? Okay. Free calories. There you go. All right, y'all. Well, I'm not on a diet, but I'm about to walk to the market after I clean my front patio. I'm going to walk to the fruteria, and get some vegetables and fruit to cook for the Grinch and I. You're just signed to Mark's channel? I'm going to sign to Mark's channel too. All right. Does anybody else want their channel signed to up in here? Up in here. You have a good day too, Epic. Thank you so much. And I'll see y'all tomorrow night. All right. Thank you. All right. I love y'all. Y'all have a super Sunday, and I'll see you tomorrow night. And Dr. Mark, have fun swimming. John London, enjoy the rest of your day. I do know you love those outdoor walks. I do. I love being able to go on them with you. They're very peaceful. All right. See y'all later.